Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For the callers that are calling in, do you mind identifying who is who so we can make a note for the record?
Sure.
Yes,
This is
Jennifer,
Sunny.
John
Sorry.
Zero.
For the number ending in 558, go ahead.
Okay, this is John Zimro, Jennifer.
And then the number ending in 762.
I don't know my number, but this is Lenny Greenstein. I'm assuming that's me.
Thank you, council member. And then Jenny, I do not see Mary Ann.
Let me send her a message really quickly.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Alyssa, it looks like Mariana is still waiting to be let in.
So I have promoted Ed as well as the City of Lacey Zoom account, which I'm assuming is Mary Ann, and neither one, they might have to accept it.
There we are. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, welcome to our first Left Disability Board meeting and since was it 2020, Jenny? I think it's been quite a while, right? Beginning of 2020 perhaps, or maybe even late 2019. So I know everyone's time certainly is valuable and important, and we really appreciate you being here. So we'd like to go ahead and get started. And I see, I'm just looking at the participant panel. By the way, I am Mary Ann Hardy. I'm the HR director for the city. And from the HR side today, we have Jenny Schaefer, who's our left board liaison, and she is now doing the duties that previously Callie Nichols had handled. And then we have Leilani Jensen as well, who's our acting assistant HR director, who's I believe going to join us by phone. She's finishing up on another meeting. So that's who we have from HR. I think it would be great if we could spend a moment and just go around and introduce ourselves. And if there is a preference as to how you would like to be addressed, whether it's a sir or whatnot, or full name, or you have a nickname, please. And we'll start, please, with Councilmember Stedman.
Michael Stedman, council member. You can call me Mike Stedman, just not late for dinner.
Thank you. Okay. Bob Cecil?
Bob Cecil. City of Lacey Police Department, retired sergeant. Call me Bob, please.
All right, welcome. Ed Storger. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, there, now you got me. My name's Ed, I'm retired as well.
Perfect. Okay, and then Sean Smith, please.
My name is Sean Smith. Everyone calls me Smitty. I'm the member at large. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. And I think we are, let me see, missing one of our board members, right? Councilmember Greenstein?
I'm here,
Oh.
but I'm on my.
Oh.
I apologize that I had to be on my phone, but I had somewhere I have to go, so I had to do this by phone. But I'm here.
Oh, no problem. Okay, and so Councilmember Greenstein, I know you're kind of our de facto chair. And if it's okay with you, since obviously we're all assimilating to the virtual world, I will help to coordinate or facilitate this meeting if that's okay with you.
I would very much appreciate that.
Okay, good. That sounds great. Okay, so
And
looks
please,
like we have.
Lenny works fine too.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate that. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Again, we're really excited. We have a lot of good stuff on the agenda today. So what I'd like to do is we've obviously got some sort of what I call housekeeping board items to look at. So the first one is, again, I had mentioned that Lenny is our de facto chair. And so again, if you are so inclined to serve in that role again for the next year, at least, that would be great. If you were interested, Councilmember Greenstein.
I'm happy to if no one else wants to, that's fine.
Okay, so if we could just get a motion to move for chair for Councilmember Greenstein, and then a second, and then we'll have a vote.
Motion. I would move to approve Lenny Greenstein as the chair of the LEOFF board.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, excellent. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right. That vote sounds like it was unanimous. So moved. Congratulations, Councilmember Greenstein.
Thanks so much.
You will continue. All right, so we got one down. Let's keep going. All right, so at this point, also on the agenda was the duration, and I guess that's really open to the board to make that determination. And so if the board is just so inclined, every year is sort of a housekeeping item, you can just say again. And if at that time something should come up and and you should choose that you don't want to do it, it might just be easiest just to do it each year. Does that seem okay with the board? Seem reasonable?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
Okay, perfect. Easy enough. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have next on the agenda? All right, so now we have, and I'm afraid I can't call you Smitty. That's just, I love it. It's great, but so Sean, if, again, has been willing to serve another term as the at-large, and that term would be for the period March 10th, that would be current today, right, the 22nd, through February the 28th, 2024. And so thank you again very much for being willing to do that. And so if someone can make a motion to appoint him as the at-large for that term.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Sean for another term. Smith.
Second.
Mitty.
Thank you. Okay, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 Excellent. Okay, again, a unanimous vote. Congratulations to another successful term, Sean. Okay, and next
Thank
on our
you,
list, we're just
Miss Mary.
whipping through everything.
Mary Ann, sorry. I have a quick thing. I know that during our last term, there was a chair and a co-chair, and I was the co-chair, but there was kind of a question whether the member at large could be the co-chair. So I don't know if you're able to address that, or maybe at a later time.
I'll tell you what, I'm not even sure. I remember this coming up, and if it did, I apologize, but I will definitely look into that, and I will know by the next meeting. But that's a good idea, because if for some reason, right, the chair typically hosts, and then you have the co-chair, right? It's kind of like a backup, so it's kind of a nice piece. But yes, we can definitely look into that, no problem. Okay, thank you very much for asking and your interest. Okay, so now we move on. We move on to the other exciting items. We also have the extension of our police representative to the board, Ed Sorger. And Jenny, what was that term again, please?
The term was through June 1st, 2024.
Okay, perfect. So congratulations. You were nominated by your peers, and so you will be serving another term. Thank you very much for serving a term to the board. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.
And then we also have the term extension of police representative to the board, Robert Cecil or Bob. And again, and that term is through Jenny, what period?
June 1st, 2024.
Okay, perfect. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Appreciate your willingness to serve on the board. Okay,
Thanks,
so
Sergeant
with
Bob.
that said, now we're looking at typically what we do now that we have our full board again. We'd like to distribute like a contacts list, but the question has come up as to what contact information you would be comfortable with on that list, keeping in mind, of course, that what you provide could be subject to public record, right? So if you have, easiest way is typically an email, and if you are inclined and would like for us to see about setting up a city email, we could see about that as well. But what we'd like to do is, at the very least, and if you'd prefer not to have any contact information at all, that's okay too. We can do that, but we want to distribute a term list so everybody has that for their books, right? So just a quick discussion, is anyone interested in providing any contact information? Would you just prefer not to have that and have them contact us and then have us reach out to you?
I certainly would be able to provide my email address. I think that's the safest.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind as well, any contact information.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I'm happy to
And
have
if-
both my city email and my city phone number as contacts without a problem.
Thank you.
I'm the
Thank you, Counselor.
same as Lenny. Also, any of the board members or staff want to have my more personal information that's available, just get a hold of me.
Excellent. Okay,
And
so we'll.
this is Sean. I'll provide my email, but I'll contact you to let you know which one. And I'm sure there's a lot of more important people on this call than I am. So by the time it filters down to me, I guess everybody was busy.
No problem. Okay, that's greatly appreciated, because sometimes, as you know, we get asked, right, by the other left members, or there might be a question, or someone might want to get a hold of someone. So that's really helpful to know. So we will update that information and have a list with terms and that limited contact information, and we will be able to distribute that out, right? So thank you very much for that. Okay, so now we have, and again, obviously we can see here that we've got it's sort of a mixed bag of following the, Robert's rules of orders or not, because I don't think that the LEOFF board has adopted them all. So I know we had the original call to order and roll call, and I mentioned everyone's here, so we're all accounted for. But in terms of the agenda items and the approval of the agenda, are there any other items on the agenda that weren't added or didn't get added that the board would like to add to the agenda at this time?
Nope.
No, none. I can think of.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Probably the
We have,
item of the
just-
co-chair.
Yes, we will, and I will make sure to follow that up. Definitely, Sean. Absolutely. Okay.
And Marianne, if I may, I turned my video
Yes.
off because it cut off there for a minute, so it should help with no delays in hearing you guys talk. So that's why I turned my video off.
No problem. No
The
problem.
Wi-Fi,
We certainly
the Wi-Fi
understand
here
that.
at Hicks Lake isn't the best.
I completely understand. Trust me. Okay, we will have really quick reimbursement requests for the board to discuss from two Left One members. So we are going to add that to the agenda. But having said that, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Okay, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 Excellent. Okay, so I I think the first item of business that we have on here is the approval of the meeting minutes. So did everyone get an opportunity to review the meeting minutes of November 14th, 2019? Okay. Are there any changes that need to be made to those meeting minutes from the board's perspective?
I would move to approve the meeting minutes of November 2019.
Second.
Excellent. Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much for that. And as a standard sort of protocol, as a cleanup item, we've been looking at our LEOFF process. And one of the things that we want to do is we would like to start having the chair sign off on our meeting minutes once they're approved. So we will send you a copy of that, Councilmember Greenstein, and you can just send an email back if you're okay with that. And we'll attach the email as the approval.
Okay, perfect.
Great. Let's see, moving along, business items. Okay, so we have an item on here that says review policies and the procedures. As the board knows, the board has a purview to create the policies for reimbursement for our LEOFF Disability Board. So the question that has come up is, as a best practice, it is always a good idea once a year to review those policies, right? To see if something needs to be changed, something needs to be added, if another policy needs to be created. So I'd like to open that for discussion. If the board has, number one, has had the opportunity to review the policies, if they want to have a discussion about the policies, today, if there are any changes, and if it's easier for the board to say, okay, let's go through policy by policy, we can certainly do that. It's the board's purview.
Well, I would ask a question first, Marianne. Are there any recommended changes from staff, from the HR department?
Thank you very much for asking. We actually have started looking at this, and I think we don't have any changes to recommend right at this moment, because we're still, as we were looking at expenditures and kind of looking at trends, just wanting to make sure that we have a clear, sort of the best practice, right, before we bring that forward. So we're still looking at a couple items, but one in particular is on the list, and it's the long-term care, which has come up as a question, right, at the last board meeting. So at this time, I would say that we may have some changes that we may be wanting to add to the policies, but since we had such a transition with our staff, and really we've just started digging into expenditures and things like that, we wouldn't be able, unfortunately, Councilmember Greenstein, to bring that at this meeting. So if the board is so inclined and feels comfortable, we could come back at the next meeting and say, here are some recommendations that we've seen based on some maybe expenditures.
Well, I mean, unless anyone on the board has anything specific that they think needs changing at this time, that would be my recommendation, is to let staff review it back to us. Okay, we can certainly table that one, and that brings us actually to item 2, which is talking about the meetings. Right now, right, we do have our meeting set up, and I think it's set for I'm trying to recall now. Jenny, do you remember what the meetings were set up for?
Monthly.
Okay, and clearly that hasn't happened, right? So what I would like the board to, and we do have a recommendation as well, but the board to consider is, since things come up and we think it's important, the role of the board is important because it is your purview to review the expenditures or at least have some awareness as well as policies. This is something where the recommendation would be, instead of meeting once a month, because that doesn't seem like necessarily even pre-pandemic that was the typical process, the recommendation would be to set up a meeting once a quarter. There are a number of cities that, as a practice, meet once a quarter. And then if you don't need to meet, you cancel it, right? And you can have a special meeting. If there was a need for a meeting, we certainly would reach out and set that up. So that would be the recommendation, to actually change the meeting dates and times to once a quarter. And at this date, if this time works, that would be great.
I would make a motion to approve meeting quarterly.
Well, I'd like to comment on that before we have a second on it. I think we have several of the items that policies that need to be addressed. I'd like to meet a bit sooner than that until we get to two of the issues that we'd like to. We have both the dental and the long-term health care. I certainly don't want to task you folks with looking up some information that we're going to need to make a decision and then have to wait for another quarter to then assign you to ask to do more follow-up, and we could drag this thing on forever. And it's been a long time. This has been on the table for quite some time. So I think at least initially I'd like to meet once a month, just so we can move forward on this. It's difficult for us to do anything. Well, in fact, it's illegal for us to do anything unless we're in an open meeting. So I think once a month for at least the next couple of months, and then maybe address going to a quarterly. Those are just my thoughts.
Sure. And you're absolutely right. It's been a while. Councilmember Stedman, are you okay with that? And Chair Greenstein, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with it. I was going to say, and Lenny knows also, because we're on the Law and Justice Committee for the county, and they meet quarterly, and we'll have meetings. Most of them get canceled. But I do agree with Bob. There's we haven't had a whole lot of stuff going on, and it has been a while. A while turns into a very long time if you're not careful. But I'm absolutely fine with whatever the board is comfortable with. Knowing that we can have special meetings and that electronic meetings are official meetings too, just so everybody's aware.
You bet. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
I'm comfortable with that. I think that's a good idea, actually. Let's get the issues resolved and then go to quarterly. Makes perfect sense.
Okay. Well, sounds like a plan. Then we will plan to have another meeting next month. Same time and as per current status quo.
I think Ed's trying to say something, but he's muted.
Uh-oh, you're still muted. There you go.
There you go.
You can hear me now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was going to suggest that's probably a good idea to move that along. Were we thinking in-person meetings here in the next month or two now that we're getting the masks lifted?
I think the Zoom meeting works okay, Ed.
Well, yeah, I'm just curious what folks were thinking.
Yeah, my recommendation, and I know that the city is kind of leaving that open, right? To if it works okay for the board, we could continue to have them. There isn't, or we could even look at maybe a hybrid option.
That's what I would like to see, at least to middle of this year, maybe even the end of the year, and then.
We're going to hybrid meetings for city council meetings at the end of this month.
So what do we mean by that?
So I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, Lenny, what do we mean by hybrid?
That means people can show up in
You have
person.
both an in-person and a Zoom component. So you can do it like this, or you can be there in person.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
People, even forgetting COVID or any of that, makes it so that if someone's traveling or anything, they're still able to join the meeting by doing it on Zoom.
Yeah, I think, Bob, that's a good idea with once a month. And I'm really concerned about folks that might have a pending issue going on where the city has an issue with reimbursement for an item where the member isn't stuck holding it for 2, 3, 4 months before a decision's made.
And we could have special meetings if that's, warrants it. And you only need, I believe it's 3 members to conduct business. So
to have a quorum, correct, Councilmember Stedman.
I don't think our intent is ever to leave a member hanging when benefits are not only deserved, but have been earned over the decades. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So like I said, we will have a meeting at the next, it will be April, right? And we will send out that information in the agenda as well in advance of the meeting. So the next item we have on here is the long-term care item. And this is as I understand, a follow-up item from the last meeting. And it's been so long that if I recall, back from 2019, there were some questions about what the current amount was, which we understand varies a little bit from member to member. It's it's somewhere around $3,000. And so we've been kind of looking into this. And I think actually our acting assistant HR director, Leilani, has, and maybe Jenny, you received that, right? Where the different amounts for the members, but it's roughly, it seemed like it was roughly around $3,000 that the policy covers for long-term care. It should a member have to go into a facility for the purposes, right? That's what the policy would pay up to. And so the question obviously has come up, as we know in today's dollars, maybe back several years ago, okay, maybe 20 years ago, right? $3,000 may have been a reasonable amount at that time, and that really was a good plan. But obviously, and we know insurance, it's not intended to cover everything, encompass everything. The idea is whether or not the board wants to have a long-term care policy, long-term care and or assisted living care type policy. Because there currently is not one. Is that right, Jenny, in place for long-term care? I think there are other policies, but this is kind of a newer and obviously, understandably, right, important potential policy.
It is. We're all approaching that, and it's having elders that we placed in recently placed in assisted care. It's almost 3 times that is what it's costing now. And I'd like to get a policy in place where we at least have, this is going to be, the city of Lacey is going to pay this much. Anything over that, then we'll do a case by case. That's where I was going with that, but I was going to wait for the new to bring that up. Or I guess it doesn't have to be new business, does it? Because this has been going on since 2018 that we've been trying to get this resolved.
Well, I'm sorry. Under the current policy, through that company, Jennifer, that you have, the city has that UNUM, UNUM, where I think we have 9 members and 2 had a different coverage than the other ones. And then there was a part in there where I remember from 2019 that Callie was going to check into about the cost of living that's supposed to be part of this policy that was never clear. So Bob, the amounts, the 3,000 amount may very well be much more than that, but those are kinds of things we need looked into. So I'll leave it with that. I sent the policy that I got to you, Jenny, this morning. The one I got back in 2019 from them. But I know there's only 2 of us that have a different coverage than the other 7 or what have you. So
I would just add that, my background is insurance, so I know a fair amount about long-term care. The typical long-term care policies, or at least ones I've always sold, did have inflation riders in them, where they did go up each year by some, usually 3, 4, 5%, depending on what cost of living increase you purchased on the policy. But that is pretty standard in long-term care coverage.
sure, yeah. And with the Association of Left One folks, when they put out their policies and showing what jurisdictions do what, it's an overwhelming majority that they do. They look at the highs and lows and do an average is what a lot of the cities do in counties. So there's some things there we need to probably dive a little deeper.
So a couple of things, if I can recap what I heard from the board. So it sounds to me like, Ed, you were able to send a copy of your policy to Jenny, and I think we were just recently in contact with them, so we can flesh out a little bit more coverage limits. So at least we have an idea of the 9. So we will follow up with Unum and see if we can get that amount, right, with the cost of inflation. And that would be helpful, I think, for the board. The other thing that I would recommend is, I know this obviously is probably one of the more, just being, transparent, relatively expensive costs that could come up, right? It's very, very easy. A memory care facility could cost 12 grand a month easily, right? I mean, those, specialized type facilities, right? Like up north in the world that I came from, they're pretty spendy. But some things for the board to consider as to whether or not a number of cities have a process where they do, 3 quotes. You get 3 quotes from in your area that the left one member's living, right? And then you kind of, set that amount. I think in Edmonds, we had a policy of a cap of like 7,500, and then it was a case by case beyond that, because there were special needs, right? So my other recommendation would be, and I don't know, Ed, if the Washington State Left Education Association, if they have, like an updated copy of their policy. I'm not even sure that their secretary is, you know what I mean? If she's still the secretary or not, because, the pandemic kind of threw a wrench into everything. But we could certainly kind of go out to a couple of our local cities, like a handful, and see if they have policies that we could send to the board for consideration, if that would be helpful, like kind of our local, comps here, if that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay. Instead of having to reinvent the wheel. Yes.
Yeah.
This was what Callie was tasked, she was tasked with this back in 2018. So we kind of just fell by the wayside here. So I would really like to get this addressed.
As we had a policy in Edmonds, and it was a very important policy. So I certainly understand the interest and the importance of it. So again, if we're meeting next month, the expectation would be, we would reach out and be able to, other cities and entities around us have boards, and so this shouldn't be difficult. So I'm sorry, I can't unfortunately speak to what happened in 18, but I can tell you that Jenny is very, very responsive and has been doing a really, really nice job in her role, as has Leon working.
If I may, when I came on board, I believe there was 14 members still with us. Now we're down to 9. That should be taken into consideration as well. So it's not, it's less than half the compounding effect now. God bless them. We have an obligation to make sure these benefits and our members are taken care of under Left One. So, but there's a lot fewer of them, and if we're not careful and we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, there'll be even fewer. So, if it's 3,000 now, it could easily be at least 6. If you do the math, it doesn't affect anything between now and then, other than the rise in inflation and rising cost of living.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Hey, Marianne.
Yes.
This is Sean. So one thing to keep in mind, I'm glad you brought up the Washington State Left Education Association, because pre-COVID, we were attending conferences and we were receiving valuable information that like best practices or what other left boards were doing around the state. And we were able to bring that back. And because of COVID, the conferences were canceled and we haven't been able to do that. So I recommend, and I agree with you, we reach out to them to see what the consensus is around the state, to kind of get an idea of what they're doing for long-term care, or if they're even doing it at all. But I also agree with the councilman.
Okay, and Sean, I certainly understand that we do have a network of individuals that include all of the other cities and entities. The only piece, the caveat though, I would throw out there is, if we ask every association or every entity for their policy, that's going to be something that is quite quite an onerous task, right? Onerous task for us to put together all of that's why I was suggesting if we could start with maybe some of the similar, you know, the cities around here, the like cities, and start with that. And if the board needs more information, we're not certainly unwilling. It's just I'm thinking capacity, right? And where we're at. Obviously, Callie's not, you know, with us, and so it's going to be a little bit of a that's a lot. I did this process in Edmonds, Sean, and we got like 200 policies back, right? From and then trying to kind of, you know, compare, right? Do like a comparison chart. That's a lot. But what I will do though is I will reach out and see if they have a set, like you're saying too, of the most updated, you know, comparison. Because I remember going to a conference several years ago, and then they have, you know, here are the, right, kind of in a nutshell. Here's what the, you know, typical practices on this, right, in the policy. So let me see on that and what we can get as well, right? But at least to start with, we can kind of see what's going on around us, and get some of the information from the cities, and we can bring that back to. And on that note, I think we have one more policy too that I think was of interest, was having a dental policy for a reimbursement for dental expenses, and that's the next item that's on the list. So if the board is so interested, we could also get a little information from our comp cities as well about, you know, what's your left one disability board dental policy, right?
Good, excellent.
Miss
Dental
Leanne,
health is very important. Does somebody have a raise their hand there? I can't see.
I did.
Sorry.
That's me. Yes. I do want to just touch on this really quickly before we move on. As I came into my position, and I think Ed, you were the one that originally I was talking to that posed the question and kind of caught me up with where the board left off with things. And I do want to say I have reached out to some counterparts to ask the question, what does their coverage look like? So I have started that process already. I have not asked to look at their exact policies yet, but I have, you know, just asked for like generally what do you guys cover? So I will certainly work to dig into that a little bit farther for you guys.
Thank you, Jenny. Plus, I sent you some information this morning about dental coverage.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I haven't had a chance to check my email yet today. I'm in a conference in Linwood, so yesterday and today, so I haven't had a chance to take a look at that yet. So I apologize for that delayed response.
No problem.
So that was why that was on the list, is because I do not believe that there is a current policy. Okay, so bringing us to the last two items that we wanted to include in business. Jenny, there were two requests for reimbursements for two different LEOFF1 members. If you want to, you know, start with the first line.
Yeah, correct. So we have an invoice that needs approval for a LEOFF1 board member for $400 for massage services.
And is this something that's been paid for in the past?
Yes, it has been, but we don't have anything that defines HR as being able to approve expenses in our policies and procedures. And so really the board should be approving these, not HR.
Right. And this has been going on for many years. It's not, has it not?
Yeah. I would make a motion to approve the $400 expenditure for massage therapy. I don't know what number client it is, but it really doesn't matter.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then the second expenditure would be, we received an invoice for a LEOFF1 board member for $1,798 for the portion of hearing aids that was not covered by insurance.
Actually, it is covered by insurance. That's the copay. Did you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I know there's a big
You're
fluctuation.
looking for a motion that we pay it, or?
Right.
Well, I'll make a motion that we pay it, having. We
A second on?
Yeah, second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I would say that
Oh, sorry.
for discussion purposes, I know depending on where you go, it can fluctuate in price, especially in, you know, recent years. But I don't know.
Michael, if I may, the only way that they can, any member can be reimbursed is if they follow Regent's Med Advantages procedure first. They have to go through.
That's exactly what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and they cover, of course, a big majority of it.
Awesome. Okay, so you know it's been a while. You know, it's been a couple years, and try to get back up, catch up, back up to speed. So I knew we're doing our due diligence and crossing every T and dotting every I, but just for the sake of, you know, getting it right, and just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Excellent. So all in favor? We had a motion to
Aye.
approve and a second.
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you very much. Again, unanimous. You guys are a difficult group.
I think we all have the same goal. We want to make sure we're taking care of our retirees.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay.
God bless you.
We have an under other business items, we have kind of a newer item. One thing that we will be bringing forward going forward is a request for the approval on the expenditures. As you know, the way that it's working right now is finance is basically kind of tracking sort of a list of, you know, expenses. I mean, we have the invoices, we send them off for approval, you know, within our purview, and then they approve it. But we want to make sure that the board ultimately approves. It's a best practice, right? The expenses. And so Jenny, what's the total for this last period of expenditures?
Let me pull that up. Give me just one moment.
Sure.
Does this include what the city pays for Regent's Med Advantage?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, my computer's running a little bit slow. And so what I asked for is the period of time since the board last met. And then through February 8th was when the report was run. And just trying to scan and see the total here. It looks like the grand total was $129,289.08.
But
And
that's
that was-
from November 2019. So we're talking somewhere roughly 26, 27 months.
That's correct.
And roughly.
I just realized that I
$5
was nodding my head and you can't see my face.
And roughly $5 per year, roughly.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I was just thinking out loud. Per member per year. That's, I mean, just.
Breaking up there.
So do you need a motion to approve that expenditure?
Yes, please.
I would move approval of the total expenditure for the period from November 2019 through February 8th, 2022.
Excellent. Thank you. A second?
Second?
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Okay. Great. And I think Councilmember Stedman's trying to connect. I understand that.
Yeah, it's an aye. I turned the
Perfect,
video
thank you.
off again because it got slow.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So I think that, Jenny, we didn't have any other reimbursement requests, right? Okay.
Nope.
And we didn't have any other business. So I think at this point, we've gotten through our items. Certainly we have some items that we need to follow up on our end. And the intent is to have another meeting, right? Same time and place in April. So we will be sending out details on that to follow, and we'll follow up on the items that we talked about, and we'll have some further information for the board at the next meeting.
Okay,
So
yeah.
again,
Mary
thanks,
Ann,
everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
So looking over our policies and procedures, they're really tailored to the structure of our board and the procedures about that. When you were in Edmonds, were they able to put in print policies regarding things like long-term care and things like dental and other ways of reimbursement? So they were more specific than what our policies obviously don't show.
Yes,
So
they were
is that-
pretty detailed.
Yeah, and so is that something that City of Lacey's looking to tighten it up there?
I think the interest that the city has is to just make sure from an auditing perspective, because a board ultimately gives authority, right? And if you give the authority to the HR staff to say you can approve up to this amount, and it's written through policy, or whether it's approved in minutes where you say, we make a motion, and I think there was a meeting, right, a couple years back where you said HR has the authority for X, right? And then anything beyond that, whether it's included in the policies or not, has to come to the board. We just want to make sure that with our policies, I don't know that we're looking for this, everything has to be buttoned down, because there is going to be sometimes a case by case situation. There just will be. Everyone's health situation is different, right? And their needs are different. But I do think we want to make sure we're definitive enough that provides the parameters that we need, and also from an auditing perspective, because this is too, right? Because, it's the board gave the authority, and it was very clear that this is where, the approvals were, right? So yes, I think a little more detail would be helpful. We're not trying to, reinvent the wheel, but I think it's been a while too since the policies probably have been looked at, right?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So hopefully that's helpful. That's a great question. And again, appreciate everyone being here today, and we'll be working on some stuff in the background, and we will see you all next month. Have a lovely March.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. You too.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
See you, and
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Smitty.
everyone.
You're all looking great. See ya.
Thanks, Michael. Lily.
Bye, guys.